Hello managers, welcome to the city, a mass dystopian country-sized area full of suffering and death, where all three games created by Project Moon, Lobotomy Corporation, Ruina, and Limbus Company take place. Now you're probably wondering, how is this connected to one of the biogeochemical cycles, the nitrogen cycle? Well, here's a video to explain the general cycle using Project Moon terms, and don't worry if you're new to the trilogy, I'll be explaining the terms as well, and how they correlate. Even if it's a reach, but it'll help understand the cycle for viewers. To start with the three questions given, the two organic compounds nitrogen is found in are amino acids and amides. The former being a building block of protein and amides being a class of compounds where a nitrogen atom is tied with a carbon atom of a carbonyl group. This can be simply related to Ham Pang Pang, where said protein would take place in the city as it is a restaurant chain. We need to eat food to survive. Secondly, the three major ways that nitrogen becomes fixed is in the process of nitrogen fixation, which I'll go more in depth later on, but it consists of biological, industrial, and atmospheric fixation. Now, let's talk about the steps of the process for the nitrogen cycle. The first step is, guess what? Nitrogen fixation. This step is to convert nitrogen, which takes up 78% of the atmosphere, which we breathe in but are unable to use, into a usable form, like ammonia. This is similar to how in Limbus Company, every character holds something known as light, which came from the Seed of Light project created by the protagonist of Lobotomy Corporation and continued with Ruina, which essentially was done to make the people of the city empathetic and emotionally honest with themselves. However, just like nitrogen, we can't utilize it for cool powers right off the bat. We need a way to convert it even if it exists in our human subconsciousness. The most common is biological fixation, where biological action by certain bacteria such as rhizobia, which is symbiotic with legumes, beans, and peas, is done to create ammonia. This is similar to gaining an ego, where it's the traditional natural root of if you're strong enough to hold your conviction and belief, you'll transform into a more powerful being because of the light. The other way is atmospheric abiotic fixation, which is done by lightning strikes where energy from the strikes can break nitrogen bonds in the atmosphere, creating nitric acid. This is much more rare and similar to learning how to control one's sins due to the light and looking into their trauma in order to use an ability similar to Haki from One Piece. In other words, an enhancement to your physical prowess called Shin and Man, which is just like lightning, is way more rare than the former transformations. Lastly, industrial fixation is when humans fix nitrogen through high temperature and pressure industrial processes, such as the Haber-Bosch process, which is making fertilizer. This is similar to how Carmen, the scary lady, needs to talk to you in order to obtain a power-up transformation determined from emotions and will of self as a distortion, typically from significant pressure on the mental state, causing them to change from their ideology and turning into a monstrous form. The next step is nitrification, which is just the conversion of ammonium into nitrite and then to nitrate. This can be represented as further mastery of Shin and Man, allowing more production of rings. Assimilation, the next step, is about how plant roots absorb ammonium ions and nitrate ions for use in making molecules such as DNA, amino acids, and proteins. This can be represented by applying the Shin and Man in order to kill civilians of the city. The next step is ammonification, where after nitrogen has served its purpose in living organisms, decomposing bacteria convert the nitrogen-rich compounds, wastes, and dead bodies into similar compounds such as ammonia. This is eerily similar to the sweepers, which essentially roam the backstreets, the slums in the Project Moon universe at night, disposing of humans both alive and dead and leaving nothing in their wake during 3:13 to 4:34 AM. The final step is denitrification, where ammonia is converted into nitrates and nitrites, which are then converted into nitrogen gas in the atmosphere, which can be represented as how the deaths of civilians are commonplace, and since the birth rate is higher than death rate in the city, well, it leads to the city to retain a 6+ million population. You can think of the sweepers as the bacteria. Now let's talk about the human impacts, which by far are the most similar to how the city works. Humans alter the nitrogen cycle by adding gases, nitrogen oxides, into the atmosphere that contribute to acid rain and burning fossil fuels in automobiles and power plants. This can be similar to how the wings work, which are essentially conglomerates and megacorporations that control a nest, the antithesis of the backstreets, within each of the 26 districts of the city. They have power because they hold a singularity, which is just a form of technology with supernatural and seemingly magical properties, being able to ignore the laws of physics in the natural world. old L-Corp singularity, which was used for energy sent into real-world factories, was associated with creating smoke, and it came to be a problem in the smoke bar where the smoke monster recreated from said singularity as a parallel to air pollution. Anyways, that should be all. Thank you guys for listening, and Faust wants to say Faust appreciates the support for the last video, which obtained 8k views and 92 subscribers. Faust will be making more videos, so stay tuned for that.